Hey everybody, I'm Sean Mullen with RampantDesignTools.com, back with another episode of Practical Effects for Editors. In a previous episode, you saw that we could use the Adobe After Effects CC camera tracker and quickly add type to a scene. Well, we're going to take that a little bit further this time, and not only are we going to add type to our scene, but we're going to cast a shadow and make it look like it's really in the environment. Alright, so before I go any further, let me show you what we're going to do here. So as you can see, we have this woman dancing barefoot in an abandoned warehouse. It's not only entertaining, but highly sanitary. So let's let this thing preview real quick, and we'll see it in real time. So as you can see, we've got our text tracking with the camera and casting a nice shadow. All right, let's jump in and do this ourselves. All right, so here's our raw footage. And like you saw in the example, I want to place our text right here on this dirt mound that she's so happily dancing around. And I'm going to highlight our video layer, go under Animation and Track Camera. And it's going to go ahead and it's going to initialize and analyze the shot and solve for our 3D camera. It's only about 280 or so frames. It'll take a minute or two to calculate and solve for the camera, and then we'll keep moving forward. Alright, so the camera tracker has tracked and solved the shot. And if you scrub through here, you can see, based on the trackers and the way they're moving, it looks like we have a decent track. One way to verify whether or not your track is going to be helpful for you is go back over here to the 3D camera tracker and see where it says Advanced, twirl that down. Right here, you're going to see something called Average Error. This says 0.63 pixels. In my experience, anything less than 1 pixel is going to yield you a pretty decent track. Anything more than 1 pixel could potentially give you some problems. So the fact that we're at 0.63, we're well within that margin, we're doing good. So we should have a decent, if not perfect, track. All right, so like I said, I want to have my text right here. And as you can see, there's all these targets here. I want to put my target right there. I'm going to right click. Last time I showed you a text in a camera and a null in a camera. This time we're going to skip those two. We're going to go straight to create a shadow catcher, camera, and light. All right, cool. So now we have our 3D camera, which tracks with the scene. We have a shadow catcher, which is right here. And as you see as I'm scrubbing through, it's locked to the center of that dirt pile. And we have a light. Let's start off with the light here. First of all, if I scroll way back, zoom way back, I can't see my light anywhere. So where is it? So let's double click on the light and find out what's going on. First of all, the light type is point. I don't want a point light, I want a spotlight. So let's switch it to spot right now. Now you can see the cone from the light, so let's go ahead and click OK and zoom out. It's like, wow, it's really kind of tweaked. So let's zoom forward again, and we can solve that very easily by clicking on the light layer, right-clicking, transform, reset. Cool, now we can see our light. We can see this is where our light is sitting right here in 3D space. As you can see, it's not pointing in the right place or even positioned in the right place. So let's take care of that right now. Let's take a look at our shadow catcher here. This is why I like to use nulls. The shadow catcher is also a great way to always have a frame of reference. The shadow catcher's anchor point is positioned right where I want my type. So if I hit P on the shadow catcher layer and highlight position and hit copy, and then go up to the light and go under transform, I have some positional information. The light has two positional pieces of information. There's the point of interest and the position. Point of interest is what the light is pointing to. So I want to highlight point of interest and hit paste. As you can see, now the light is targeted right here where my shadow catcher is. Now I can just reposition the light so it's more where I want it to be. I kind of want it to be centered. And again, when you grab it in here, sometimes it grabs the point of interest. So I'm just going to highlight point of interest again and hit paste one more time. Boom, there we go. So now the light's kind of where I want it to be for now. Let's twirl that back up. So cool, we've got our shadow catcher, we've got a light. Now we need our type. So let's click the type tool, and we'll start off using our big obnoxious title, Who Wants to Dance in an Abandoned Warehouse? Now, as you can see, I've got this huge type here. Before I do anything else, I want to make sure I turn on the 3D type layer. And the cool thing about this is, even though it's not where I want it to be, it is moving with my camera. So if you wanted to do some kind of crazy design element or have text closer to the camera than your subject, this is kind of a cool effect. Not what we're doing here, but it's kind of cool. Again, going back to the shadow catcher positional information, highlight position on the shadow catcher, hit copy, click on the text layer, hit paste. Now the anchor point of the text is where the shadow catcher anchor point is as well. Again, not perfect, but we're getting in the right place. Let's click on the text. Let's scale the text down here. Something reasonable. And let's cinch this up. I'm going to add a question mark here. Scale this last line up just a little bit. Okay. Now this is still way too small to read, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit A for anchor point, and I'm going to reposition the anchor point instead of the position on the type. So the type is way too far justified to the right. So keeping the anchor point in the center, I'm adjusting the anchor point and moving the text over. Okay. Now I'm going to highlight the text again, and I am going to scale this up. So we can get something that we like. Once again, hitting A for anchor point and readjusting until you have something which you're happy with. So if I just scrub through here, my text is tracking to the scene, and looks like it's pretty good. Okay. Well, you've got your light, you've got your shadow catcher, and you've got your camera, so what's the problem? Why don't I see a shadow? Well, highlight the text layer and twirl it down. Go all the way down to Material Options and twirl that down again. You see all these different options. The very first option is Cast Shadows. It's defaulted at off, so let's turn it on. You can sort of see a shadow here. I'm going to click this Cast Shadows one more time to only so you can see what I'm talking about. Here is the shadow being cast from the light. Now the problem is, it's kind of funky looking. It's this weird rectangle shape and it's only showing a fraction of a few letters. So let's scroll down to Shadow Catcher and highlight it. Here's why. This is the default size to the Shadow Catcher. That's not going to work for us. So I'm going to hit S for scale. I'm going to scale this bad boy up way big until it gets everything that I need in the frame here. There we go. So now you can see our shadow who wants to dance in an abandoned warehouse. Let's go back up to our type, go to Material Options, and turn Cast Shadows from only back to on. All right, now if we preview this, you'll see text tracked in 3D space. You'll see shadow being cast in 3D space. And if you're happy with this, cool. But I'm going to show you how to dial in the shadow just a little bit better because it's not quite right. And I'd like to tweak it just a little bit. So let's this preview real quick and take a look at it in real time. So yeah, we've got our text, we've got our shadow, and everything's tracking, and the track looks great. All right, so let's scroll back here. Let's go back to a frame right around here in the middle of the shot. Okay, cool. I'm going to turn Cast Shadows to only real quick to show you what I'm about to do next. Let's highlight our light layer and double click on it. Okay, right now our shadow is just a little too pronounced, a little too horror movie title-y kind of thing going on, if that's even a word. Title-y is not a word, by the way. All right, if you want to tweak your shadow, the quickest way to do it without getting too involved in the parameters is to adjust either the shadow darkness or the shadow diffusion. The shadow darkness is just that. It's how dark do you want the shadow to be, from 0, and it just keeps going to insane levels of darkness. I'm going to put that back at 100, and we're going to talk about diffusion. All diffusion means is soften and spread. So how much do you want to soften and spread the shadow? So I'm going to grab this and just move it up until I get something a little bit more along the lines of where I'll be happy. See, there you go. So now you've got the shadow going from this nice hard edge all the way to this nice soft edge. So let's hit OK. And go back to our material options for our text layer and click it from only to on. That looks a lot better. Now you've got reasonable shadow and it's not too obnoxious. Now it looks like here is my text seems to be crooked just a little bit. So I'm going to highlight T and hit R for rotation. And I'm going to adjust my rotation until I get something I'm happy with here. Looks like it was only one. Rotation of -1 got that solved there. All right, cool. So now it's looking like the text is sitting on the ground and casting a shadow. Now, if you're in a situation where your text is just a little too hard to read, it is a title, so you can go ahead and highlight it and go under Effect, Perspective, and add a little bit of a drop if you need it. I don't recommend it in this particular scene. I don't think we need it, but you can absolutely do that if you're having trouble with your type. So as you see, that's pretty much it. We've got our text tracked into the scene. We've got a nice diffused and soft shadow, and it's all happening while the dancer's dancing. This would be great for a title, for an open, for a promo, or if you were doing a dance show where you had several dancers. This could be the name of the person and their stats or whatever it happens to be. This is a great way of stylizing and really taking your footage up a level. Also, the great thing about this setup is, let's say the director walks in and goes, hey, I love the technique, but this is an absolutely absurd title. I don't know what we were thinking. We've just decided to change the title. Cool, no problem. Just highlight your text and call it whatever you want. For now, we'll just call it Dance Show because they don't know what they want. And we'll scale it up, and I'm going to reposition my anchor. That's all you have to do is bring your text by repositioning the anchor back down to the floor. See? You can see that you just lock it down right where the shadow and the text meet on the floor. Boom. Very cool. And this works for logos or anything you want to track. You can put absolutely anything in here that you want. You can scale it up even more. Get yourself something nice. And we can even call it Rampant. So as this previews, that's it. I'm just going to run through this real quick with you again one more time. You start with your footage. You track the camera, you find your target, you right-click and you add a shadow catcher, a light, and a camera. Then you just add your text. Make sure to always use the position of your shadow catcher as a frame of reference, and to also double-check to make sure that your text is casting a shadow by twirling down the text, going into Material Options, and turning Cast Shadows to On. Then make sure your shadow catcher is big enough to catch the entire shadow, adjust your light, and you're good to go. So within a minute or two, you've got tracked text casting a shadow. It looks great. Your clients are happy. You're happy. And you didn't have to send this out of house to get it done yourself. So that's about it. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments, questions, or tutorial requests, hit us up on Twitter at Rampant Design, or check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/rampantmedia. And of course, you can find more tutorials at rampantdesigntools.com. Until next time, I'm Sean Mullen for Rampant Design Tools. Thanks for watching.